Greetings, Joseph Kursky here with you to talk about using ArcGIS dashboards in instruction, research, and campus operations. Using ArcGIS dashboards in instruction, research, and campus operations. Happy to take questions and comments. Joseph Kursky here, geographer, educator, GIS professional. Happy that you're with me today. The purpose of this presentation and workshop is to do the following. Understand where dashboards fit into the ArcGIS system. It's a system, it's a platform from ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute. Dashboards are incredibly powerful. Number 2, gain skills in creating and maintaining dashboards. Number 3, gain confidence that you can use dashboards in your instruction, research, campus operations, and in your own career path. And lastly, connect you to ESRI support and additional resources available to you as instructors, researchers, operations managers, and students. Something for everyone, and I hope it's useful and valuable. What is a dashboard? A dashboard is a rich display of information in a small amount of space, a information-rich display. Think of the dashboard in your car. Although I never had a car with as cool a dashboard as this one, think of a dashboard in a vehicle. It's got a lot of information in a short amount of space. Same thing with an ArcGIS dashboard. Lots of information, graphs, charts, images, videos, indicators, maps in a short amount of space. Ideally one screen, although it can have tabs linking to additional screens. A dashboard is commonly thought of as a single screen of information or a display with charts on it. That's kind of a simple definition, but here are a couple of examples and a way of thinking about these as maybe categorizing these as two types. Snapshot dashboards. They're a snapshot in time and space. Okay, total population, for example, here in Pittsburgh. Monitoring dashboards, by contrast, change as data changes. Okay, so in this case, 311 requests for the same city. That changes as those requests come in. How do you link them to real-time feeds, etc.? So snapshot and monitoring dashboards, both very useful. ArcGIS dashboards are map-centric web applications with interactive elements to draw the user's attention to specific items or data feeds. They're intuitive, and they're also quick to create and to maintain. Means of sharing data within an organization or with outside audiences. Just like other things in the ArcGIS platform, you can share these with just a few colleagues, with nobody, or on the other end of the scale, with everyone in the world with a link. It also helps simplify the display of complex information because you're getting a lot of information again in a short amount of space. Some of that information is from real-time feeds. Dashboards look clean and they're simple to configure, again, dragging and dropping as we'll see in this workshop, with no coding required. But with some coding on your tool belt, you have even more power. More about that in a bit too, with some examples. Who has not seen this dashboard? This is probably the most famous dashboard in the world. It's certainly the most viewed dashboard with views in the trillions with a T. Everybody with a device, a tablet, a laptop, a phone has seen the JHU, Johns Hopkins University COVID dashboard. Why? Because it's incredibly useful and valuable to people as they make decisions about mask mandates, where to visit, where to go, and so on as we navigated and still navigate our way through COVID. The grim but important dashboard that it is. So that's an example of an ArcGIS dashboard. As you can see, this one has tabs at the bottom for additional screens, but it is a lot of information in a short set of real estate, if you will, short screen. This is meant, these next few slides, to get you thinking about the difference between a map, an interactive map, and a dashboard. Here's an ArcGIS online map. This is in the classic map viewer, but we have a new map viewer as well with some tools on the right-hand side and less tools on the top. But basically, you've got a map with some tools on it and some layer information. A dashboard with that same map has the map in it, but also, in this case, about hydrants, a indicator in the top left. It's got a gauge, well, actually two gauges in the middle left and the bottom left, and with the map on the right. So again, paging back, here's the map, here's the dashboard. You get additional information. Also notice on the top bar, there is a filter capability, and there's also some tools in the upper right of the map. I'll show you how to create those, both of those things in this workshop. Here's another dashboard. You've got three elements here. You've got hydrants recently inspected or maybe drainage ditches or discharges, but recently inspected. So there's a filter running behind the scenes. I'll show you how to do that as well. And a map, it's got a flag, in other words, color indicating illegal or illicit discharge sites in the lower left. So how do you do that? How do you indicate when something happens in the data to flag it somehow with a color or a bold text or some sort of flashing indicator or whatever, other things that you can do. And it also has a gauge in the upper left. Here's a dashboard as well with the same kind of theme in it, but it also has a video. So in showing you that these dashboards, which are part of web mapping applications, which include web mapping, web app builder, experience builder, story maps are web mapping applications, dashboards, they're all web mapping applications. And since they're living in the cloud, you can incorporate multimedia elements, including video. Again, don't just include it because they're there, because it's possible, but include it if it adds value. Here's a dashboard as well, getting you to think about what kinds of things could I create. Here's a gauge but also an indicator, and there's some indications of, we've got this red triangle with an exclamation point that draws the user's attention. You've got a map there with this different symbology. We'll talk about that. You've got a nice, fairly easy to interpret chart there with bars, but also the line as well, showing trends. Fascinating to be able to do this. This is used out in the field, in the workplace, so it's not just an exercise in academics. These dashboards are heavily used by state, local, regional, national, international government agencies, nonprofit organizations, academia, private industry, and more in the workplace. For example, work orders. How do I have a field crew of 150 people and I've got to check in and check out data on water mains or electric lines or transportation infrastructure, whatever it is? These are actually being used out in the field and in the workplace because they're incredibly valuable. You can see the work order here with, there's some possible leaking in the distribution of this water system, for example. Here's a damaged valve. Let's go inspect it. Who gets out there in the field, who inspects it, etc. Checking in and checking out data. I like to think of this phrase, from maps to apps in a dash. That's what dashboards allow you to do. Create a web mapping application from a map in a dash. In other words, in a short amount of time. And what do you need to get started with this? Well, you need a focused idea, just like when you go out in the field or just like you're doing anything in a geographic information systems or GIS environment. What do you want to accomplish? Don't just choose tools randomly. What do you want to display in this case for others to see? So what's your focused idea? Who's your audience for this? So you need to have some GIS savviness. You need to know about layers. You need to know about web mapping. You need to know about web mapping applications and how to build these things. And I'll guide you through this. And what kind of attributes does your data have? Because those are the attributes that you can choose from with your dashboard. Your dashboard is not going to invent things out of nothing. You have to have it in your feature services, in your images, in your data, in order for you to display it in your attributes on your dashboard or in your gauges or in your indicators. So you need to have, even before you create the dashboard, what kind of data do you have at your fingertips, or what do you need to create so that you can make a dashboard from it? You need a creator license in ArcGIS Online to build these. You also need you don't really need to have a license at all to view it. This is an error on the slide. Sorry about that. You just need to have you need to share it with people, and then your end users don't have to have any sort of ArcGIS Online if you make it public. If you're sharing it just with a group, then your group members need to have an ArcGIS Online account or login to be able to view it. Let's step back for a moment. What's the purpose of geographic information systems and spatial analysis? It's all about location, 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 location. What's where, why is it there, and why should we care? What's where, why is it there, and why should we care? That's my mantra, and I'm sticking to it. So that's the purpose of GIS. And it feeds into questions that I get frequently. What is the best tool for displaying information about X or Y phenomenon or scale or issue or problem? Well, it depends on your goals and your audience and what you want to convey and how you want to communicate it. Remember, the higher goals are to understand, to be able to solve problems, to grapple with real world issues, and then maybe to take action about an issue or a problem or a situation. So making a map is not the end goal. Making a dashboard is not the end goal. The end goal is to understand something in a deeper, richer way. And that's why I have this slide here, to keep us anchored on that higher, more noble goal. Yes, it's important to learn about how to make dashboards, but not just for the sake of making dashboards. It's all about why do we want to communicate and how should we communicate? Dashboards can fill a very real need for communicating in certain ways. They're not the end all be all for every single situation. Sometimes it might be the experience builder, a web mapping application, an instant app, a story map. There's other ways of communicating, a video, it's an infographic, and sometimes it's not a map tool at all. It's a report. So it just depends on your goals and your data and your audience. What's the purpose of GIS? Remember, what's where, why is it there, and why should we care about water mains or natural hazards or health or equity or climate, etc.? Remember, GIS has these 5 components. Analytics, they're not just pretty pictures. They're not just maps online. They have analytics behind them. And Dashboards is very well suited for drawing the reader's attention to the fact that maps are analytical tools and they help us make decisions in a smarter way. Methods. GIS is all about methods, models, how you choose to structure your workflow in your geographic information system. Data. Dashboards rely on data, layers, geodatabases, shapefiles, comma separated value, and other tables. And communication. Dashboards are a communication tool. They allow us to communicate a great amount of information in a small amount of space. And finally, dashboards rely on this GIS component of people. People, the audience, the people creating it, the people consuming the information, the people making decisions from the information that you or others are serving in a dashboard. So dashboards in sum have great connections to all 5 components of a GIS, which is another reason why I think it's valuable in the workplace, but also as an instructional tool. Now, digging deeper into this last issue about education, why should you use dashboards? Why do I recommend that you use dashboards in education and research? First of all, dashboards are a part of the ArcGIS platform. ArcGIS is a connected set of maps, apps, layers, capabilities, and more. And number 2, you can quickly and powerfully visualize data in a dashboard. Third, you can share data within your own research team or with your students in one class or between universities via partnered collaborations or, again, with the whole world. Also, they're in high demand in the workplace. So these are just a few reasons why dashboards should, I recommend, be used. And it integrates these things that you see on the right-hand side here in that graphic. Digging a little bit deeper, here's one example. But going from ArcGIS Online to creating a dashboard, that is the basic workflow. It's as simple as that. You've got ArcGIS Online, you've got your maps and your layers and your data there, and then from there, you create a dashboard. And you share that with, again, the whole world, or a subset of that whole world is your research or class or university or college or school, or with nobody. That's something you're just working on yourself. Here's an example of a water quality study. The additional educational benefits from this: 3 students traveled to Puerto Rico collecting data with ESRI field maps, Survey 123, and webhooks. The professor could not be in the field, but benefited from seeing real-time data collection on a dashboard from the professor's vantage point in Pennsylvania. The professor also used the dashboard to guide the students in the field and to make sure the students were safe. I love that part. In the words of one of the students, pretty cool. So here is an article about that, from paper and pencil to mobile apps and maps. This is a Villanova University research team, and here is the study site and more information about that. You can search on these. Here's their dashboard, their sampling sites. Fascinating. So being able to do this in the field is really quite powerful, and linking it back have all kinds of additional educational benefits. So just do a search on from paper and pencil to mobile apps, mobile maps and apps. Maybe put an ESRI tag on that search and you'll find it. Another example of why use dashboards in education and research. Remember, I talked about the ArcGIS platform in brief. It is an interconnected set of maps, apps, tools, data, methods. They're connected is the thing that gives you power. Now, you and I have phone apps that do 1 or 2 things. We have apps on our computer that do 1 or 2 things. And they're not connected to anything else, but they're very useful, and that's why we use them. But ArcGIS is a system. It's a platform. And so here's an example of a Survey 123 that feeds an ArcGIS Online map and a dashboard. And these 3 elements are included in a story map. So if I go to this walkability study of mine, you can see here that I have What's walkability? Why do communities care about it? So here I've got a story map, and I explain this in more detail in other videos. The story map is all about why do communities care about walkability? What are the benefits to communities? So I have a set of photographs where I have students and others reading the story map to rank the walkability. Then I have a survey 1, 2, 3 that's inside the story map that you can fill out because I've crowdsourced it. I've made it available to anyone, so anyone can take this survey that is linked to this button that you see right here. Click to submit point in your own community or a place that you have a photograph of. How would you rank that place in terms of its walkability? And then I have, as you would expect, the data from that survey fed into this web map. The green being walkable as deemed by the people filling out the survey, and the hollow pedestrian symbols meaning not walkable. Okay, and then finally, and more germane to this workshop right here, this presentation right here on dashboards, let's pop that out for better real estate, for more space here, is a dashboard. The dashboard in my case is fed by one feed, and that's my survey 1, 2, 3 on walkability. The JHU COVID dashboard is fed by multiple feeds: CDC, World Health Organization, local, regional, national health organizations around the world. So it gets multiple feeds. Mine has one feed in it. But you can see that from that one feed, I've got a lot of information in my dashboard. I've got a legend. I've got in the lower center here, I've got a set of photographs indicating walkable versus not walkable. I've got the web map in here that's interactive, that I can click on these points and see that, these different walkable or not walkable places around the world. So I have attributes on each one of those that come from my survey. I've got a bar chart here in the upper center, the top center. I've got a ranked list. How do I do that? That's coming up in this workshop. How do I rank this list? And in the upper right, I've got a pie chart with indication that roughly 1/4 of the points in my web map are pedestrian unfriendly and 3/4 are pedestrian friendly. 771 points as of this moment that I'm filming this video, and 18 points added last month. The top 3 months for survey, so that indicates that there's a filter going on and a ranking behind the scenes in this dashboard. So this dashboard is part of my story map. It's embedded in my story map to tell the complete story. I have a map, I have a dashboard, I have a survey, and all those 3 elements are wrapped up into this story map that tells me about my project, my walkability project. So dashboard was a key part of that. The power there is twofold. Number one, each one of those elements took me a very short amount of time to create. Roughly 2 class periods for the story map, 2 class periods for the survey, 2 class periods for the web map, and maybe 3 class periods for the dashboard because I have some additional advanced elements in there. But we're not talking weeks, months to create these things. So they're easy to create, but it also shows that ArcGIS is a connected system, which gives you a lot of power because you don't have to use a completely different kind of interface. It's all connected, and these tools are interactive, and they can work with each other. Again, that's one of the powers here. Now, why dashboards in education and research? Couple of last reasons. It forces you to consider scale, symbology, classification, and other communication skills. Number 2, it focuses attention to where needed, communicates at a glance, with easy to spot indicators, figures, flags that focus attention. So for example, see the left side there. These things evolve over time, as they should, as other web mapping applications and other things that you work on evolve over time as you learn more, as the tools evolve, and as you have additional needs and requirements. So for example, in the left side there is the 311 requests for Pittsburgh as originally conceived and as originally published. You can see that a couple of those pie charts are a little bit confusing, a little bit hard to read. Maybe a better indicator would be an actual indicator in the right side. So as this evolved, you can see that the right side is a bit easier to interpret. These evolve over time. Same thing with my own dashboard on the walkability. When I first conceived that walkability dashboard in 2019, you can see it looked like on the left side there. I was sort of happy with that for a while, but as time has gone on and the tools improved, my own knowledge improved, I've got additional functionality in there, and you can see what it looks like at the present time on the right side. So it's improved over time. And that's another nice thing. You can, as you learn more, your dashboards could evolve as well. So it's a learning experience. We're all part of this lifelong learning endeavor. Selected dashboards. Let's take a look at a couple more of these. I've showed you a few so far, but the dashboards gallery is a very nice way for you. Just take a look, do a search on Dashboards, ArcGIS Gallery, and you'll find these. You can see here that you've got redlining, crime, health, development, from local to global scale, water infrastructure all around the world. We'll look at a few of these in more detail, but you can see that this gallery, which has at the moment about 3 pages worth of things in it, is full of really interesting examples. This is sort of a greatest hits of dashboards. It's not the only thing, but I really like, having worked at the USGS for years, this Living Atlas live stream gauge network. Let's take a look at this. I've got thousands of stream gauges in here. Wow, fascinating. Look at this. And each one of these is linked to the hydrograph, where I can see the stream gauge. I can tie it to, what's happening? Why is this in a different color? Because it looks like it was at flood stage here, over the Little Wabash here. Minor flood, 20 feet high right now. And so we've got, in the table, we can click on the map. We can see the stage height. So it's a dashboard of all of the USGS stream gauges. Fascinating to have that at our fingertips. That is a lot of data in a short amount of space. So take a look at this dashboards gallery at some point. I think it will inspire you and help you to gain ideas about what's possible. Let's look at a couple of others that I've pulled out here. And for example, the Audubon, they've been doing citizen science and observation, community engagement for over 100 years. One of the things that I think is fascinating about one of their chapters in Northern Virginia, they've got this web map here in ArcGIS Online, but they also have a dashboard with some of that same information, but additional elements that I think illustrates, you can see the difference between the web map and the dashboard here. So, okay, what about the different wildlife sanctuary areas in a very urban, heavily urban zone, but how can habitat be protected, and where are the protected areas in this area? Fascinating to be able to do this and be able to investigate each one of these points in more detail. And you've got lots of information again, and you can select by year, you can select by date, so you've got some capability of interacting. Okay, we could investigate that some more, and I encourage you to do so. Let's take a look at this water quality dashboard. Water is an important part of our world, right? Ever more so as we move forward in the 21st century. So here is, okay, water quality status for Maryland. What is the water quality like in community X, community Y, community Z? We can look at the different gauges at the bottom. I really like the way they've done this. Really interesting to have this interaction with a tool like this. Wow. Investigate this more thoroughly on your own. Redlining in urban heat islands. Let's take a look at that. I think what indicates to me with these dashboards is that you've got no shortage of social and environmental issues that you can investigate with these dashboards, right, folks? So what's the relationship between historical events and trends versus what the situation is now in different cities, and looking at impervious surface, tree cover, minority population, etc. It's just a very rich data set that you've got at your fingertips here with these dashboards. And notice here, I can select the city. I can interact with this in other ways with different tools that I've got at my fingertips. I can actually interact with the map, banding rectangles, circles, and other polygon shapes, and then obtain information for those shapes that I draw on the map. So lots of interactivity with your data users possible in these dashboards. And let's also look at the NFL Super Bowl. This is a fun issue, a fun thing. It's a little bit confusing here with the number of teams that are trying to be shown in this donut chart here, but this is fascinating to see. Oh gosh, who's lost the Super Bowl the most times? I'm in Denver, so it's a little grim for me to see Denver number 5 in here, but also Denver's won some, so they're up in the upper chart as well. But I'm a Green Bay fan, so it's good to see Green Bay Packers up here, most recent. And you've got this. Wow, you can scroll all the way back to 1970. Anyway, the point is, You've got all kinds of information here. 1967, Green Bay over Kansas City. Cool. But it's just grand to be able to do this. And look where the Super Bowls have actually been played, as well as where the teams are. Just great to be able to do this. So a fun dashboard for sure. But it shows the versatility of these things. There's also admin use of dashboards, for example, in higher education, where you've got arboriculture, the arbor tree cover, tree species, etc., on the University of North Alabama campus in the lower left. And then the upper right is our colleagues at the University of Michigan showing the use of ArcGIS on their campus. So it's a tool to show, hey, we've got an increasing use, and it's all across the board. It's all across disciplines on campus. So this is an admin tool that they use, and they use a dashboard for monitoring their GIS use. GIS tools and workflows that are most relevant for creating dashboards. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but ArcGIS Online, you can create a dashboard right from your web maps. You can also be an ArcGIS Pro. You can publish that data to ArcGIS Online, and then from there, you're creating a dashboard. If you're in Business Analyst Web, which is another SaaS-based software as a service tool, you can create a dashboard from Business Analyst Web as well. Now, you most likely already have Esri GIS technology on your campus. If you don't, let me know, and my colleagues and I can help you get there. Let's step into some activities here in the next section of this particular workshop. We're going to build a dashboard for a street tree survey, a street tree census in New York City. That will be lots of fun, and it'll build some skills that you can use for your own applications in the future. We are going to build this dashboard here, shown at right. We're going to start with this web map at the left side, and we're going to build this dashboard, as you can see on the right side. This is our goal. We're going to build this dashboard. We're going to have a map. We're going to have a bar graph. We're going to have a pie chart. We're going to have an indicator and a legend. That's what we're going to build in this next segment. Let's get started. Starting with the New York City street tree census data online, open data portal, I have saved. First, I filtered this tree data to only the wide trees, the big trees. I've made a feature service out of it. I've loaded it in ArcGIS Online, and I've created a web map, as you can see here. Now, from that web map, I'm going to say create a dashboard. It's just a left side of the map viewer. I'm going to give it some metadata so that I can find it easily later, and so that you can find it if I share it with the public. So give it some metadata, again, to make your life easier in the future. And that's as easy as it is to create a dashboard. Now we're going to configure elements in our dashboard. The first thing we're going to want to put in there is we're going to be able to let the user have a legend and to change the base map. Now in the upper right, I can see that I can get a legend and allow the user to change the base map. Wonderful. That is configuring that element. Easily done. Okay, let's add another element. Let's add a pie chart. Okay, so let's go ahead and say pie chart and indicate the feature service, which is the street tree data, that the pie chart is going to get data from. So that is my feature service. I can say, okay, what attribute am I going to get the tree data from? What kind of thing am I interested in putting in my pie chart? I really would like health in there. Okay, health. I'm going to take the defaults. I could spend time in the workshop tweaking the font and the color and that sort of thing, but I won't do that here. But know that you can do that. I'm going to give it a title, How Healthy Are the Trees? And make that a little bit bold and make that a certain color, etc. Okay, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to say done. It's quite large. I'm going to configure the sizes of these in a bit, but first I'm going to add another element. I want to add, with the plus sign, an indicator. An indicator. How do I do that? Well, okay, I say indicator. And again, selecting the feature service where my data is coming from, I'm going to say, that's looking good. I can name these things so I can find them easily later on. Right now it says indicator 1. We'll talk about how to rename that in a bit. Give it a title. Maybe I'll make the text slightly different color, maybe a greenish to indicate trees. Say done there. Again, it's a little large, so I'm going to configure these. I'm going to drag these to their new location by just dragging and docking. Now my map is a bit small, so now I'm going to make my other elements small and make my map larger. So again, it's a matter of dragging and dropping. This is wonderful to be able to do this interactively like this and get instant gratification, isn't it? All right, we are doing great. Let's add one more thing. Let's add a legend. Okay, there's my legend. Now, if I wanted to change the map, I'd have to go to the map editor and change the map, but right now my legend is reflecting what I have in the map. So if I wanted to change the map, my legend would automatically reflect my changes in the map. Let's add another element. Let's add a chart, a serial chart. Again, selecting my feature service. And what kind of field or fields do I want in here? I want the diameter at breast height. So I want the width of the trees. Okay, now let's label the axes here, the X and the Y axis. Okay, you can do that. Now I've got number of trees with a certain diameter as the Y axis and the dBH in inches because I've looked at the metadata. That's the units that it's using. And now I'm going to drag that below the map so that I get a nice map above my serial chart. And now I'm going to go ahead and save that. Excellent. All those elements are in the map. Great. To summarize, this is exactly what we did. We created an app using the dashboard tools inside ArcGIS Online. We provided some metadata. We added a legend and a base map switcher. Number 3 there, we added a pie chart. Number 4, we added an indicator, how many trees are in the data set. Number 5, we dragged the elements to the suitable locations or positions. We adjusted them. We saved it. We added a map legend. We adjusted the title. And finally, we added a serial chart with the X and Y axis labeled. Excellent. So that's what we did. And now in this next segment, I'd like us to do the following. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive. We're going to start with our existing dashboard in this next segment. We're going to save it with a different title so we can go back to our beginning dashboard if we want to. We're going to change the theme and the colors ever so briefly. We're going to add a table and allow for data download. We're going to add some features, some fields to that table. We're going to enable advanced formatting, and then we're going to be able to sort these. Oh, this is going to be great. So a deeper dive in this next segment. Let's get started. Okay, let's save as and call it perhaps a deeper dive so we can distinguish this dashboard from our original dashboard. That way we can come back to our original dashboard. And now let's go ahead and a little bit of, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this workshop tweaking the settings. Know that it's not Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. You don't have tons of choices, but you have a decent number of choices here where you can change the backgrounds and the borders and the text color and things like that. So again, the power of a dashboard is in the mapping and the interactivity and the interrelationships between the data and the data feeds and what's being displayed. So again, you don't have infinite choices here, but I'm going to adjust things showing you that, okay, I've made some changes and I'm going to go ahead and save this now. Some of the tools in ArcGIS Online are autosave and some are not autosave. The dashboards have a little dot save button so that's later that you need to save it again. Now let's go ahead and add a table. I'm going to go to features here and add some fields. I want the diameter of breast height, the address, the borough, the health of the tree, and the postcode. So we're going to do that here. Address, borough, health, and postcode. So it's just a matter of picking the fields from this list. I want to know where these trees are, and so that's why I'm focusing on the location. Okay, note the postcode. It's showing up as a text string. So 11,358 is actually zip code 11358. If we go to values and say advanced formatting enable, notice the postcodes just from saying advanced formatting are now formatted correctly. There's additional things we could do inside the Arcade scripting language to make sure that that's recognized as text and not number. Let's click on source data download. I want my users to be able to download right from my dashboard. That is wonderful. Now notice at the bottom of the table you have a arrow, be able to download that data. Wonderful to be able to do this on our dashboard. To summarize that segment, we started with an existing dashboard. We went to Save As. We named it appropriately. We experimented with changing the themes and the colors. We then added a table, and we also allowed that table to be downloaded. We added an element. We added some fields. We noted the postcode changes, and we allowed others to download that data from our dashboard. So that's what we've done in that segment. Let's dig a little deeper now. Okay, let's dig a little deeper and let's do this. Let's have a deeper dive. And here, let's go ahead and do the following. Allow user filters. Ooh. Let's also do some table and map interaction. Okay. Let's also be able to dig a little deeper into interacting with the map and the table, and then sort the table on the tree height, or actually the tree diameter breast height, so the width of the tree. All right, let's do that in this next segment. Very good. We're digging deeper, but just in increments. We're going to add the ability to user filters. So in the header, what do we do here? We want to say, okay, I want the header to be New York City trees. Nothing too fancy there, but a header is nice. We can also do things to the header, as we'll see in a bit. Now we've got a header there. Look, we can add a selector in the header. The selector will allow the user to do something to the map and the data by selecting something. Okay, I'm going to give it grouped values here. We're going to adjust this later on so that we'll have even more power, but we're just going to take the defaults, grouped value, and we're going to give it health. Okay, and let's go ahead and give it the selector. Let's go ahead and say, what do we want here? We want the category to be, what's the label? Choose tree health. That makes sense. Let's use that. Choose tree health. And let's say inline, so it's going to be horizontally displayed in there. Fair, good, poor. The order is not ideal. Fix it later on. We'll dig a little deeper and fix it later on. I also like the none option. You know, if you no selection, good. I think for the label, no selection. Okay. That's going to be in our header of our dashboard. Wonderful. And we're going to filter the table and the map. Okay, what does that give us? Notice we've got a header now with the ability to select things in it. Okay, we can click on, of course, the attributes in there. And we can also click in the table. Ooh, the fair trees. Look, our selector is working. I only see the fair trees when I select fair. What about good? Ooh, look at the map. It changed. So that's working. And the poor condition, the trees in poor condition. Wonderful. So that's working quite well. What more can we do here? There's more we can do here, folks. Good thing to test these things after you configure them to make sure it's properly is that the map is not zooming and panning. It's panning, but it's not at the scale I want. I want maybe a larger scale. So maybe I want those trees to flash when I select them. How do we do that? First of all, I'm just going to test and make sure these are working. As I look at the attributes, it's truly, that one should be in fair condition because I've got the fair selected, so that's great. It's all working good. What about a tree that's in good condition? Looking at the attributes, that's all looking fine. But notice as I select on the map to Staten Island, and the map did not pan over to Staten Island. So I'm going to set the point zoom scale here and do some other things that we can. I'm going to set it to 5,000. Now if I click on Staten Island, it's not panning over. Okay. Interesting. So how do I adjust that so the map is actually panning over to Staten Island? Okay. That is entirely doable within, there's my tree, but I'm not panning like I want it to. So let's go back to those settings in a bit and adjust those. Okay, pan. Yeah, let's select pan. Okay, that's good. That'll pan us over at the scale. Let's go. So select a tree in Brooklyn. There's my Queens. Pans over to Queens, Staten Island. Yay! Okay, great. That is exactly what I wanted to happen. All right, at the scale that I wanted to happen at too. So that's good. All right, I'm liking that. Let's save that just in case anything happened with our web connection, right? It's a good idea to save often. Let's go ahead and configure. And what do we want to configure? Let's go ahead and configure that table. What additional things can we do here that will allow us to dig deeper? Okay, let's change some of the fields. Let's sort by, tree at diameter breast height, because I'm really interested in these large trees. Now, notice I've got the trees sorted in my table. Wonderful, and I can click down. That's the third largest tree right there. Let's see if I can figure out what it looks like on the ground. Hey, there's Google Street View. And if I type in this address into Google Maps and then turn on Street View, I should be able to find that tree in Queens. Look at that. There it is, right there. That's the address. That is that big tree in Queens. Let's pan around and see what the neighborhood looks like. There it is again. Ah, wonderful. We're digging deeper in these dashboard mini components of this workshop and building skills at each level. What did we do in this last deeper dive? We added a header, and then we added a selector in that header to allow us to select by tree health. Okay. We also went to some of the map and table interactions so that as we select in the table, the map would change scale. It would pan over to our selected trees. And then this last piece, what we did was we sorted the table on tree at diameter breast height. And there was our third largest tree, or widest tree, I should say, in the lower right-hand corner there. Excellent. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper still. But again, these are fairly intuitive, these tools, and practice makes proficiency. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit deeper in this next section. Here's what I'd like us to do in this next section. Dig a little deeper. We're going to configure the table so that we're going to remove the postcode and then add sidewalk damage. So a little bit more familiarity with the tables. And then we're going to go into the advanced formatting. Not too scary, but we're going to dip a few toes into the arcade scripting language so that we're going to be able to add a variable, store that variable, and then we're going to change the table so that when we select poor trees, it's going to be highlighted in a yellowish color. Okay, the text color is going to be a different color as well, so that when you select something in the table, it's very clear that those are selected. For example, we want the poor trees in poor condition. That's what we have time and budget to address, and that's what we want to appear in our dashboard. So that is a little bit of a deeper dive. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started. We're going into the table as promised. We're going to configure that table. Okay, we've got features in there. I don't want the postcode. I want to add a field that is going to be the health of the tree. And also sidewalk, if it's damaged or not. We've already got health, so let's add sidewalk. Damage or no damage. Done. Okay, good. I see the preview right there. That's great. These things give me instant gratification. In other words, I can see what I'm configuring before I say done. That's nice. Let's go ahead and configure and dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to go into values this time. Don't get scared by this, but this is the arcade that's running behind the scenes. We can pop that out so we can have more of a good user experience. I'm going to store the background color and a text color into a variable. If it's poor, I want it to be a certain color. I'm giving it a hex code, basically. Black being 000000, and the FFFF00 is yellow. So I've got those two variables stored, and now if I go under health, I'm going to be able to change the text color and the background colors that in those. Does that know all I'm doing? Going in format, I want these arcade scripts and this language that's operating. If you can a little bit of capability, it gives you a lot of power. And so I go ahead and I can test this and make sure the syntax is correct. So now I've got this configured. I'm going to go and say the table one more time. That's all looking good. I've got the sidewalk. And notice here I've got, ooh, look at that. The poor are color. Yep. So I'm going to configure that, go into General, look at Table, Selection Color. I don't like the fact that when I'm clicking on it, it's blue. So now if I click on that and I give it a light green color, I like that a lot better. Ah, that is just looking really good now. It's really giving me some great functionality. Wonderful. Okay, that was great. We're going to resave our dashboard. Let's summarize what we did in that last segment. We removed the postcode. We added the sidewalk damage. Okay. We also then went into a little bit of arcade scripting. We stored a background color and a text color in a variable. We went down to where the health field is indicated. And we said, okay, where it's poor, it's going to be a certain color. We've also changed the selection color in that last segment. So some deeper dives, but again, nothing that you folks can't do. And I hope this is being helpful so far. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper now in this next segment. We're going to adjust the category selector. Remember how I was saying earlier that I wasn't really too happy with it being, as you can see in the upper right here, no selection, fair, good, poor. That to me is counterintuitive. The fair and the good should be transposed. So after what we want is no selection, poor, fair, good. I want it to be from not healthy to healthy. So how do we do that? We go to defined values. The default gave us grouped values, but if we go with defined values, we can actually order them in the right order that we want. Okay. We're also going to test out that action, and also we're going to go to category selector, actions, indicator, target field health, so that the indicator changes as you select trees with different health. Ooh, nice. Also, we're going to note that you can name the elements, as I indicated earlier, if there's a coming attraction, and here it is, with a more meaningful name in your dashboard so that you can quickly find elements instead of having indicator 1, indicator 2, indicator 3, if you have 3 indicators, actually naming it appropriately. And also going to edit. How can you quickly edit your map if you don't like the symbology? Remember I was saying you've got to go into the editor? How can you do that while you're inside the dashboard? So that's what we're going to do in this next segment. Let's get started. All right, folks, let's get rolling. We're going to change it from grouped values to defined values in our category selector. This is so that we can have more intuitive order of our selector. All I have to do is say add values, and now I'm going to change the display name and the value name to poor, fair, good, because exactly that's the order I want. I'm going to change the value to the exact same thing, poor, fair, and good. All right. And notice that you get instant feedback in the upper right saying what you've got there so far. Okay, so we went from grouped values to defined values. Our selector, no selection, still is there. That's good. I like that. Actions, what do we want for actions? Ooh, I want to have tree feature layer and the target field be health. And what do I want to change? We'll dig into this a bit more later. Or let's go ahead and test this out. Now I've got the here. I like that a lot better. That's a lot more intuitive. Now I've just got, yeah, okay. Remember I changed the selection color in that last segment with you all? So we're going to be able to, yes. But what if I want to change the indicator so it reflects only the selected set? Okay. Notice on the middle right now, if I say poor, fair, good, I'm getting the amount of trees that are poor, fair, and good condition. I like that, rather than the total. Okay. So that was configuring the indicator. Okay. As promised, hey, what if I want to edit the map? If I go up to the triple bars on the left side, the upper left of my dashboard, look, app mode. So I don't have to save and go to my map contents in my ArcGIS Online organization. I can go right here and start changing the symbology and the classification method. That's extremely, extremely helpful to be able to do that. So Notice it's just in the upper left there. Nice to be able to do that. And the other thing that I promised that I would mention is that, let's go ahead and save this. You can also rename your indicators, indicator 1, indicator 2, and name those appropriately. Let's summarize. We changed the category selector from grouped values to defined values so that we can get a better order. You see the before and after there. We also changed the actions so that the indicator on the right side of our dashboard would be reflective of how many we've selected, how many trees we have selected. Instead of giving us just the total number of trees, it reflects now poor, fair, and good condition trees. And then finally, I talked about how do you edit the map inside your dashboard. Change the classification method, change the symbology, change the scale, etc. You can do that right from the dashboard. Very helpful. And finally, when you add elements to your dashboard, you're going to have indicator 1, indicator 2, pie chart 1, pie chart 2. So make sure that you know that you can go in there and rename these so that you can easily find things more easily in the future. All right, so that was activity 2D. Let's go into activity 3, an even deeper dive in this next section. What we're going to do is we're going to go into that dashboard about walkability that I had earlier, and we're going to configure it. We're going to find out how I configured it. So I'm going to guide you through some of these activities in here. I'm going to guide you through how did I create the pie chart with the sorting of the fields, with the number of walkable points, the top 3 months for surveys, and a filtered list. I'm going to briefly guide you through that in this next segment. Okay, so let's get started with this activity. Going a little bit deeper still into dashboards. As promised in this section, I'm going to show you how I created my walkability dashboard, which as a refresher, it is right there. I'm going to create a new dashboard so we can test it and I can show you exactly how I configure these elements. In this case, I have several what I call intermediate or advanced kind of elements in here, going a little bit further than what we had before. How do I, this is reflecting on what we talked about earlier. I also have this action is not null, so I'm excluding the null value if someone didn't indicate whether it was friendly or unfriendly. Other than that, it's pretty much what we had done before. We've got some slices configured with certain colors. And of course, I gave it a title. This is where you could actually name that pie chart so it's not called pie chart 1 in your contents. So that's all that pie chart is. Let's look at a couple of other elements in here. Let's look at the indicator. Number of submitted as of this date. How did I configure that as of this date? Well, just like earlier, we went into the advanced formatting where we see the arcade language, the arcade code that's running that indicator. And in this case, I'm just configuring a today's date and pretty date field, both of those. And I'm giving them today's date, etc. I'm formatting it in such a way that it displays nicely with the slashes and so on. So that's all. I'm just storing that as a variable, and I'm outputting that into my indicator, as you can see here. Total number of surveys submitted as of this date. And so, okay, what about this list, lower right, top 3 months for surveys? How did I get this list with the month and then the number after the month? So obviously that is some sort of sort with a filter. So again, I'm going into the arcade scripting language. I'm setting a couple of variables and saying, okay, I'm going to store those variables and I'm going to output them into a filtered list. So that's what is powering that. You can see the code that I've got in here for that. Again, I could name that. So this is the output maximum number of features. I just want 3, but if I wanted to, I could say 4, go back to 3, etc. So that part is easy. Sort by surveyed by month, descending. I could do 8. That's not, so I'm going to go back and see that there was a certain month when I had 188 survey points. And so that is how that is configured. The output then month, comma, bracket, survey by month, and that is a variable that I'm storing with the arcade scripts. So that's how that is configured. What about the map? Is just a map from my web map. Notice I can adjust that map, as you can see here. But that's how I configured these, what I call fairly advanced elements, but again, not too advanced. And with a couple of lines of code, you can do the same thing. Thanks. Before I summarize that last segment, which was basically how to configure that dashboard I built for walkability with some of the intermediate/advanced elements in there, I wanted to make sure that as an instructor, you did not miss the following. This ability here to take an existing dashboard and put a little bit of a tweak or adjustment to the URL lets you use that dashboard for a starting point and create your own dashboard from it. So compare, for example, this second URL that I have right here. Notice the big long map ID. Okay, that's my dashboard for walkability. If I use that first URL and put new number sign or hashtag ID equals, and then the map ID after that, basically what you're saying is I want to take someone's existing dashboard and I'm going to use that as a starting point for mine. That's pretty powerful as an instructor to be able to, hey, students, we're going to start, as I started you off with, let's configure this. I don't have to start completely over from a map and start the dashboard from step one. I can start right at this stage. Wonderful to be able to do that. The ability to access a dashboard and make a copy of it in edit mode is a fabulous educational capability. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss that because that's very powerful. In this activity, then, we examined the pie chart first. So we looked at how was that pie chart configured. Pretty basic. I have a couple of things with a null value that I showed in there. But then we looked at the customized indicator, total number of surveys submitted as of this date. I stored that date in a field, as you can see here in the arcade language. And then we created a filtered list. We examined the filtered list, top 3 months for surveys, August, November, September, and the number indicated after that. Okay, how was that created? A filtered list, month, year, number of surveys, stored in a variable called survey by month. And this is where that survey by month variable got created, is in the arcade zone and the edit data options in that particular part of the dashboard. Let's go on to deeper investigations, alerts and other techniques. We've touched on some of these in this workshop, but for example, see in this one about power outages, this is actually done in the field. And you know how to do this from this workshop. You know how to indicate certain colors or fonts or an indicator symbol or something, a map that flashes an element, etc. When something happens, when it goes over a certain point, when it's a poor tree condition, etc. You know how to do that. Also, user interaction. You've also done this where the user, remember I want the user to select poor health trees and have that indicated in the map and had that indicated in the table. So the dashboard changes as the user selects rows, portions of charts, and other elements. Lots more you can do there, but we've actually done that a little bit. Now for activity 4, this is on your own. Someone with admittedly more time on their hands than I have actually created a feature service for squirrels, 3,000 squirrels in New York City. It's on the same cityofnewyork.us open data portal where I got the tree species data and the tree health data. So you can go out there and grab that data, and there's a feature layer that I've created from it. You can create your own feature layer if you want to, but then build a map, build a dashboard from that squirrel data, save it, share it, and then go a little deeper. Configure those elements in the dashboard as I did. For deeper investigations also, there's GitHub for arcade expression samples. No shortage of samples. How do you go from the left side to the right side? How do you make that look a little bit more effective? There's some sample code in there, so you don't have to build all these expressions from scratch. That's really good to know. Finally, I wanted to give you some resources and encouragement. Keep exploring. This is a lifelong learning endeavor, learning these tools and to use them more effectively. The tools evolve, your needs evolve, your objectives in your education and society evolve. What's the best tool to use for data discovery and visualization? Again, as I said at the beginning, it depends on your goals. It depends on your objectives. Do you use a dashboard? Do you use a story map? Do you use a pie chart? Do you just use a report? Do you use just a plain web map? Do you use a infographic, experience builder, web app builder? There's all kinds of tools at your fingertips. You don't use these tools just because they exist. I know the tools are engaging, but you're choosing these tools based on your needs, okay, and your objectives. Keep learning. Designing effective dashboards. There's a 41-minute video. I used it. My colleague created it. It's very helpful, and it helped me with this particular workshop. What's new in most ArcGIS products from Esri? There's a what's new that comes out every quarter, dashboards being no exception. You can look at the March 2022 and later ones if you're watching this video later on, where it talks about, hey, what are the new capabilities and how do you use them? The documentation in dashboards is actually quite good. It's not some boring old dashboard documentation or software documentation in general. It actually has embedded screen captures and graphics that show you really how to do this. There are Learn lessons on dashboards. Learn is a library of lessons that you can use, and there are a set on dashboards. There's also a 5 tips to improve your ArcGIS dashboards. So again, keep learning. There's also a MOOC, an Esri MOOC on do-it-yourself geo apps that includes dashboards. These MOOCs are 6 weeks long. They're fun, they're intuitive, they're free. And professors can use dashboards to share data within the research team. As I talked about earlier, partnered collaboration. You might want to investigate that. And also remember that last segment, I had you modify an existing dashboard. Again, you had an original dashboard, you put that new hashtag ID equals and then the map ID, and you can start modifying from that point on an existing dashboard. Very powerful educational technique that I didn't want to miss here. Why this matters? Students who understand how to think critically and spatially and use GIS can be a powerful and positive force in your university, technical, tribal, community college, in your secondary school, etc., in their future workplace as well, and in the global economy. Empowered with employees who use GIS, workplaces will become a vibrant and efficient place to be and work, enabling a prosperous economy and sustainable environment for all. So with that, I hope you've enjoyed this dashboards workshop. Feel free to contact me if you've got any questions or concerns, and share your work with others. Keep learning and keep on mapping. Thanks.